And when you look at AI assistive engines, you call them the AI gods, I call them the AI assistive engines, they work on what I call the algorithmic Trinity. Every single one has the same foundation of 3 technologies, whether it's ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google AI Mode, Copilot, in every circumstance, in Gmail, in Windows, they work on search engine results, so SEO isn't yet dead.
Yep.
Knowledge graphs for fact checking, and LLM chatbots to be able to have the conversation. And if you optimize for all 3, you win the game.
I've been told, Jason, that I have to ask you about GEO.
Oh, generative engine optimization, very exciting. Who told you that?
I'm a really smart guy that I work with. What do you, is that the best term that we should talk about, or is there another one?
It's the current most popular term, and my reading of it is that it's going to be very quickly outdated, and that focusing on that is a mistake.
What's a better term?
AI assistive engine optimization. I can tell you why.
That's what this podcast is all about.
GEO is generative engine optimization, and they're focusing on the idea of this generative AI that takes text, images, and voice and video. And they're right. It's super smart, and it does bring it all together. But actually, at the end of the day, we're optimizing for assistive engines that are driven by AI. And the fact that they're generative in a year's time, it's going to be completely normal. People are going to stop thinking it used to be all text. For everyone, it's going to become, audio, video, text, images, all put together, multimodal, that's completely normal. So saying generative engine now makes sense, but in a year's time, my bet is it will be so obvious that the idea that it's an assistive engine will be more important.
That's interesting. Why do you think that this matters for a business owner?
Because the implication, or generative engine optimization is geek talk. AI assistive engine optimization makes sense. And AI assistive engines are going to be, in fact, already are, integrated into Google Docs, Windows, Gmail. They're going to be assisting you proactively, and they're going to be pushing content to you. So your brand mentions are not just when people are explicitly searching for you, implicitly searching for you because they're searching around your topic, and you might get a mention, you might get a recommendation from them, but also ambiently potentially pushing your brand into Google Docs, Gmail, Windows, whichever one it may be. And that last part, the ambient research, is the thing that everybody's missing. That won't, today, not a big deal. 5 years' time, it's going to be a huge deal.
Yeah, but why? See, I'm going back to like why it matters for business owners. And I'm just curious, like in your perspective, like, you know, what's the point?
Because we've become so used to the idea that people search for solutions. We're moving into an area where they research for solutions using ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Google AI Mode, whatever it is. And we're going to become, as human beings, lazier and lazier. And if you think about Wall-E, if you've seen the cartoon, we're going to become really lazy, and we're going to expect Copilot, Gemini, ChatGPT, when we're sitting in Google Docs or in Windows, to just put it on a platter. What do I need to do? Who's going to solve this problem for me?
You know, what's interesting is, as you say that, I'm annoyed by my daughter sent me an email and said, "Hey Dad, here's what I think you should do." And I looked at it and I was like, "Did you read this?" She goes, "No, I just searched it up on chat." And so like there's this disconnect, because I think you're right. I think we're all going to have this silliness where the AI gods are telling us how to think and what to do. And there's this huge place, like they're usually wrong right now anyways, when it comes to real information. So what's your perspective on that?
So we need to organize ourselves to be relevant today in search, because Google still dominates with search, relevant today in AI Assistive Engine research, and that's the funnel within ChatGPT, AI Mode, Copilot, and be ready for the day when agentic AI and in-app AI is going to be making the decisions. So your daughter's example is a great example, is at some point in the near future, I'm going to say, book me a ticket for a plane to Los Angeles to go for a conference on the 17th of September. And the agentic AI will make the decision. So how the agentic AI understands my brand, the offers of the airline, is going to be fundamentally important, and the human supervision from my side is going to be minimal. So we're not even looking at search and research. We're looking at ambient action taken by an AI agent. We're not there yet, and we're a long way, maybe several years. But
7.
Sorry.
You said 7 more years?
Several.
Oh, several. How many
I'm
years?
hedging my bets. I don't want to say 2. I don't want to say 7. Several covers a whole host.
That's funny. Well, Jason, we should start this podcast. Can you just kind of kick out like who you are, what you do, and then like how you got into this game? Because I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, my name is Jason Barnard. My company is Kalicube, and our primary goal is to help ambitious entrepreneurs who are already investing in their personal brand online through podcast appearances, having their own podcast like yours, writing books, guest posting, having a LinkedIn strategy, having a YouTube strategy, to take control of their brand narrative and amplify their voice in search and AI assistive engines such as Google, Bing, ChatGPT, Perplexity. And those people are the people we can serve the best. You're investing in your personal brand. You want to amplify the return on investment of that investment that you're making. And then for the people who don't have that, the means to do that, we give it all away for free here. I believe that the solution we found, which is how to control your brand narrative and amplify your voice in AI assistive engines like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google AI Mode, Microsoft Copilot, is an existential problem for us all, and that everybody has the right to be able to control what these machines know and say about them. So we give it away for free to anybody who actually just wants to do it themselves.
What's it's curious. It's an interesting space. Like you guys are at the tip of the spear, and we have a funny relationship because we hired you for SEO work. And then as we actually started diving in, what we learned is the AI gods, I like to call them AI gods because it feels like the appropriate word for them. As we're diving in and doing the work, what I quickly realized, and I think you pivoted and realized too, was SEO was the old game and AI is the new game. And so you're like on that frontier of that transition where, you know, companies used to be like, oh, we have an SEO strategy. Now companies need to say, I have an AI strategy. And that's not yet caught on for most business owners.
It's starting to catch on, and this year has been so far a turning point for us, is that my sales calls are no longer me explaining to somebody why this is important, what they need to do, and that it isn't just Google anymore, or it isn't just Google search anymore. And people come to the sales calls saying, I understand what the situation is. I understand that SEO isn't enough. What can you do? And that's been a huge change this year. So it is starting to get through to everybody. And one thing about SEO, which I find interesting, is that it is still relevant to a certain extent. So SEO is not dead. SEO is just not as important as it used to be. And when you look at AI assistive engines, you call them the AI gods, I call them the AI assistive engines, they work on what I call the algorithmic Trinity. Every single one has the same foundation of 3 technologies, whether it's ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google AI Mode, Copilot, in every circumstance, in Gmail, in Windows, they work on search engine results, so SEO isn't yet dead.
Yep.
Knowledge graphs for fact checking, and LLM chatbots to be able to have the conversation. And if you optimize for all three, you win the game. If you're optimizing just for SEO, you lose the game, because SEO is all about search results. But search results are now being summarized by the LLM chatbot, ChatGPT, for example. And one of their problems is hallucinations. They get it wrong. So they need the knowledge graph, which is an encyclopedia of facts, but tens of thousands of times bigger than Wikipedia, that they can fact check to make sure they're not making a mistake. So you need to be in the knowledge graph as a fact. You need to be in the LLM so that it can converse about you directly without having to look you up on the internet. And when it doesn't know enough, it then looks you up on the internet. Or if it's recent information, it will look up on the internet. So it's like a child. The LLM chatbot will have a conversation with you. If it happens to know the answer, it will just give it to you off the top of its head. If it isn't sure, it will look it up in the encyclopedia. If the news is too recent or it doesn't know, it will then go and look on the web, go and look in the school library, let's say. So those three phases are absolutely essential. And you're talking to a child that you can educate. Or the user, rather, is talking to a child that you can educate for your brand, so that it gives the right answer at the right time, puts you in front of the right people at the right time in their buyer journey. And one of the things to realize, if you've used ChatGPT extensively, is a lot of the time you're going down a funnel from awareness to consideration to decision. That's what it's designed to do.
One thing, how do you train the LLM chat bots? Like, what exactly do you do? Can you break it down for the audience so that they understand? Because SEO, you make sure your website looks pretty, you make sure it's readable, it's usable, all the information is accessible. That one's easy. Knowledge panel, more business owners understand that. But the chatbot LLM training, that's a brand new concept, maybe only appropriate in 2025, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like? What does that work look like if you are giving, an entrepreneur or somebody who's a new business person or a new marketing person, a basic level to an advanced level understanding?
Well, the LLM chatbot is trained on an enormous set of data, and it isn't trained every day. It's retrained every 3 months, every 6 months. It depends on the model. It depends on the company. So whatever information is in today is going to be there for the next 3 months, and it's going to rely on that information for, let's say, 3 months. If you want to be in its snap memory, you need to be in that data set so that it can immediately say off the top of its head, I know Daniel Ramsey is the CEO of MyOutDesk, and he's an amazing guy who runs an amazing company with a great service.
Yep.
If it can do that, it always will, and it won't bother looking in the knowledge graph, and it won't bother looking at the search results, and you've won the game off the bat. But you have to be patient. Now, where does it get that information is the key question. It gets it from the web. If it needs to fact check, it isn't sure which Daniel Ramsey we're talking about, it can go and look in the knowledge graph. If you're in the knowledge graph, it can then check and say, okay, I'm sure it's this Daniel Ramsey. I'm sure that this is what he does. This is his company, is MyOutDesk. The knowledge graph also takes all of its data, or most of its data, from the internet. Then, if you're asking, what did Daniel Ramsey do yesterday? It will look in the search results because it's recent. And once again, the information comes from the web. So going through that process, you can immediately see the only thing you need to do is manage your own digital footprint. And that's what we do at Kalicube. That's what we do with you and with MyOutDesk, is say, how do we optimize your entire digital footprint so the LLM chatbot, the knowledge graph, and the search results all support your brand narrative and support the machine's ability to present you to the subset of their users who are your audience at the critical moments in the funnel. That's good business. That's the future of search.
Wild. There's also this future where at some point I'll have my own agent. Yeah. And I'm curious about your perspective around that, because right now I think you're absolutely right. I go into, Claude or Copilot or whatever, and I put in a search and then it's doing all those checks. But at some point, I'm going to have the Daniel Ramsey agent who understands my preferences, understands who I am, understands what I like in the world because I've trained it to be. And they're going to be going out to all the different AI gods to try to do work on my behalf. Then they're going to reconcile all that work and then give me one answer based on what they believe is the right answer. What happens to like your work when the agent is the go-between versus the actual LLM right now, chatbots?
Right, which is a great question. The agent is still going out onto the internet to figure out what it needs to do. What will happen is increasingly it will use its own internal knowledge, which is why you need to absolutely dominate and absolutely optimize your digital footprint today, because that's going to be set in stone. And we're moving towards a world of walled gardens. Now, I remember back at the beginning of the 2000s, walled gardens, AOL is the classic example. Try and close the user into your walled garden, you get control of them, they can never get out, and you can make as much money as you possibly can out of them. And that's what AOL tried to do, and look what happened to them. All of the big tech are building walled gardens 2.0, I call them now. And what's going to happen is they're going to build a walled garden. Right now, the gates are open. In a few years, they're going to close the gates. And to get your information into that walled garden, to be presented to the people who are closed into that walled garden, is going to become increasingly difficult. You're going to be knocking at a door that doesn't have a handle. And the only way to get in is to convince the AI to let you in. And I think that's the key. And when we talk about agential AI, there's another thing is, what will be the industry standard for handshake? So a lot of people are saying, right, there's going to be a standard. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. And so you need to build that standard API interface so that the machines can exchange with your website. That's potentially going to be super important. But I say potentially because we don't yet know, because standards like schema.org, for example, have been historically almost impossible to implement. Index Now, which Bing introduced, Google refused to implement it, even though it saves crawling, because it's Microsoft and they don't like Microsoft. So you have the big tech who are going to be saying, well, yes, it might be a good idea, but I might lose my dominant market share in the case of Google if I accept that, which is why they didn't take on Index Now, which is a real pity because it was a great project. So there's going to be defensive strategies by all of them, which how you get into the walled garden will depend right now on the internet and your presence on the internet and your digital footprint. What will happen in the future is you need to adapt. And it may well be, back in the day, in 1998, when I started, you had to submit each page to 10 different engines manually. Obviously, it won't be manually, but you may end up with 50 connections and you need to connect your API to 50 different platforms in order to be accepted into the walled garden.
That API feels like the VCR, Blu-ray, and CD conversation back in the 90s when you could rent any three of those and nobody really knew which technology was going to win. Yeah.
And I think at that point, if you're on your own, and this is potentially where Kalicube is an amazing benefit to anybody who works with us, is we will be developing for all of those possibilities for all of our clients. So it will be a question of which one's winning, we flip the switch. If you're doing it on your own, you need to build them all on your own. So it's we've been talking a lot about AI platforms or tools using wrappers around ChatGPT and actually not doing anything very useful, who are going to lose their business model. And I think Kalicube has the advantage. Number one, we're doing it for you. Number two, we have the experience and the data. But number three is we're ready for the future and we'll prepare all of those opportunities and we'll take the ones that are going to be worth taking at the time it's worth taking.
What's interesting, I want to take us back. I think you've clearly articulated what Kalicube does and why this matters to a business owner. But now I'd love to hear strategies for winning in your mind. Like, if you're a business owner and you haven't thought about this, what are the 5 things that you can do to kind of accelerate or really make an impact for your brand, for your personal brand or for your company's brand? Like, what would you do right now if you were talking to a guy in Colorado who's a plumber with 5 different, locations? Like, what advice would you give that particular person so that they can win in this game today, starting from zero?
Okay, well, the plumber with 5 locations is a great example because it gives us immediately the multiple factors that we need to look into. Number 1 is you might have called your company the same thing as yourself, Jason Barnard Plumbing Incorporated.
Right.
That's potential for ambiguity. So you need to clearly distinguish in your own mind which one is you and which one is your company. Then you have 5 different locations, and each one of them is a separate thing with a separate, or maybe the same service, but to a separate group of people in a localization. So you then have 7 entities that you need to deal with. 5 locations, 1 person, 1 company. That's your first step, and it's very philosophical. Who am I? Who's my company? And what are my different entities' locations? For Kalicube, we've got Jason Barnard, the CEO. We've got Kalicube, the company. We've got Kalicube Pro, the platform. We've got the Kalicube personal brand management service. We've got the ORM service. These are all entities that we need to consider. Your service, your location, the people, the company. So you end up with many, many more entities than you thought. And you need to distinguish between them all in the minds of the machine so the machine can present the right one at the right time to the right person in that funnel. So there's a philosophical discussion that I would suggest you have with somebody who isn't in your company, because we don't see clearly our own situation. And so one of the first things we do with a lot of clients is they come on board and we have a conversation with them is, what are we talking about? What are the entities? And I had a conversation with huge American company who came in with basically the idea they had one entity, Verizon.
It was Verizon.
Yep. And we ended up with 50. And that was just the start. And the people just went away and said, I can't deal with this. And the end of that conversation was actually quite interesting because they ended up saying, well, we acquire and lose company or sell companies so fast that actually trying to build this ecosystem with intent is going to be a losing battle. But back to our plumber. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is to have what we call an entity home, which is a web page online that you control, where you tell your story of who you are, what you do, and who you serve, and why you're credible to Google, ChatGPT, Microsoft, Bing, and so on and so forth.
This is for the owner of the business, is what we're talking about. A website where you tell.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, each entity needs a page.
Yep.
So each location would have a page on the corporate website.
Yep.
The owner would also have a page on the corporate website. But as you just said, the owner is not the company and would like to, or I would suggest, differentiate themselves from the company in case they want to do other things, or they probably do other things already, in which case you need a separate website.
Yep.
So I would always advise you have a corporate website with all of your services. Each service has a specific page. That service is treated as an entity, as a thing that needs to be understood and communicated by the machines. Each location has its own page, and you as the owner and the CEO have a page on your website that describes your role within that company specifically, but you have your own website that describes you as a person, including your role at the company, plus podcast appearances, articles you've written. And that's an important aspect, which I've learned over the last few years is super, super important. It's much, much easier to build a personal brand to drive business than it is to build a corporate brand to drive business. So at Kalicube, we're using the strategy. Oh, sorry.
Well, I think you just said something. I want to unpack that because most business owners get confused in that. So why is it easier to build revenue with a personal brand than it is to build revenue with a company brand? I think this is an important distinction.
Well, If you take social media as an example, it's much easier to build up a huge following as a person than it is to build up a huge following as a corporation. People interact with people. Interacting with Kalicube is less emotional than interacting with Jason Barnard. And that's point number one. Point number two is people do business with people. So knowing who I am and recognizing me and seeing my expertise is going to make the business deal much easier to make. But if they come in saying, I've heard of Kalicube, I know Kalicube is the world expert in management of brands in the digital sphere, especially in search and AI, who are you? That's a much more difficult sell. And the other really important point is Google and AI pick up on people much more quickly than they pick up on corporations. That's because, number one, they're explicitly focusing on it for multiple reasons. They're explicitly focusing on people. And 2 years ago, the number of people in Google's machine-readable encyclopedia, its knowledge graph, tripled in 2 weeks.
Yep.
There is a clear tendency for them to focus on people. And the other thing is that once they've understood the person, understanding that person's digital footprint is much easier because it's smaller than it is to understand the corporate digital footprint, which is, number one, going to be bigger. Number two is going to be messier because you've got multiple people from the marketing department who have said multiple things over the years, who have lost the access to the account. They can't go in and change it to update it so that it reflects the brand narrative today. With a person, it tends to be a lot closer, a lot easier to manage for the person themselves, but also easier for AI to understand. So AI and Google are going to hook onto a person much quicker and much more effectively than they can hook onto a corporation.
Yep. Okay. So we've described the entities, we've created a personal brand, and number three, what's the next thing that would really blow up a business?
Right. So for your personal brand, you want to create your entity home website to become the hub of information about you. So you basically replicate your entire digital footprint on your website.
Yep.
That gives the AI and Google one single source where it can collect all the information about you and it knows it's you and it's not somebody else with the same name. And that's a huge amount of work. If you have any kind of digital footprint, and we all do, if you've been on podcasts, if you've written a book, if you've been guest posting, you're going to spend several months. In our experience, it generally takes about 6 months to take all of that content, reproduce it on your own website, link out to the original and say, okay, this is me in a box.
Yeah.
Once you've done that, brilliant. You've got the foundation. The AI and Google have a single source of truth about you where you're saying what you want it to understand, who you are, what you do, who you serve, and why you're credible. And you've linked out to the resources on other sites that say the same thing. And you then have a situation where it's very easy for the machine to come and find new information about you. It's very easy for the machine to understand who you are, what you do, who you serve, and why you're credible, and to verify it because your digital footprint is consistent and you've linked out to the resources that corroborate everything that's on your website.
What do you say to the business owner is like, yeah, Jason, this is awesome, but sounds really complicated. I'm just going to get 300,000 followers on Instagram and drive all of my personal brand through my LinkedIn content and my Instagram and all my friends on Facebook. Like, what do you say to that person? Like, I'm not going to do any of this crap.
Yeah. I mean, if that drives your business and your business is fine with that, then knock yourself out. There are a couple of problems that I see. Number one is whether you like it or not, the AI and Google are going to try and understand you. And if they get it wrong, that can be a disaster. For example, if they confuse you with somebody with the same name who is a criminal, somebody researches you on Google after seeing you on Instagram, you have a huge problem that you're going to need to sort out. That's costly, it's difficult, and you're going to have to do it anyway.
Yep.
And number two is 300,000 sounds like a big number. 300,000 is peanuts. Google AI, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot are having trillions of niche conversations with billions of people every day. And the people who are having those conversations are being brought down the funnel intentionally by the machine that's very smart. And the point of why people use a specific AI assistive engine is because they trust it.
Yeah.
So the biggest influencers in the world are the AI, ChatGPT, Google, Microsoft, Perplexity, who are having trillions of conversations with billions of people who trust them, who are intentionally bringing them down the funnel. And that simply isn't the case with Instagram.
Yeah. They're trying to keep you on platform, spending your money with them versus serving the business in a way that makes sense.
So we come back to the walled garden, which is, and the interesting concept is you want to be in all of the walled gardens because Instagram is a walled garden of itself, but it's very limited.
Yep. Okay, so we've done all that work. How, in your mind, do you win this race? Like, what's the one thing that matters after doing all these steps, like defining your entities, getting a clear website that connects them all?
Well, I mean, we've got up to 3. Number 4 is claim, frame, prove.
Oh, slow that down. Claim, fame, proof.
Claim, frame, prove.
Okay. See, this is why I wanted you to slow it down. I'm like, I don't know these words.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Right. So you're making a claim. My date of birth, I'm the world expert in online reputation management. I'm a world expert in generative engine optimization. I'm an award-winning innovator.
Yep.
I take those claims and I frame them in a way that makes sense to my business today and my personal brand in search and AI and indeed across the internet. So, for example, I'll say, well, I'm an online reputation management expert, therefore you can come to me and trust me to help you if you're an entrepreneur who has an online reputation problem, be it your own or somebody else's who shares your name.
Yep.
Then I need to link out to the third-party proof that indicates and proves to the AI and indeed to the person that what I'm saying is true.
Gotcha.
So you've got all of your content on the website, and then you spend the next 6 months claim, frame, prove. Because if you can prove it and it's framed to your advantage, your claim is always going to be very powerful. And I'll give you a really good example. Is I won a Davey, in fact, I won 2 Davey Awards in 2008. And I'd totally forgotten about them. They were sitting in my cupboard. And the Davey Awards don't keep a record of who's won a Davey Award. But I have the cups. I won a silver one and a gold one. The silver one was for music that I wrote. And the gold one was for an edutainment website for children. I took photos, posted the photo on my own website, and wrote a whole article saying I won 2 Davey Awards, one of which was for innovative edtech, which is a fair comment. It was an innovative website, online, multimedia, brilliant. And, technically it was for the games, but we can present it slightly differently. So I reframed, added it to LinkedIn, added it to a few other sources, talked about it on podcasts, got that put in the show notes. I've claimed, I've framed, I've proved.
Yep. And then what did that do for your business so that we can kind of clearly articulate that for people?
Well, there are 2 ways. Number one is if somebody's searching my name, they see serial entrepreneur. I chose the word serial. Best-selling author. I was a bestseller on Amazon like most people are because there's an easy trick to get that to happen. Best-selling is a fairly weak word these days if you're saying best-selling on a specific category on Amazon. Acclaimed keynote speaker. I just put some reviews on my keynote speaker page from people who've had me as a keynote speaker. He's brilliant, he's wonderful, he's delightful, he's informative, he's educative, and he's entertaining. And award-winning innovator with the Davey Award framed in that particular way. That makes me look like a super, super interesting person to do business with. Somebody very authoritative, somebody who really, really will easily move from, well, I'm not quite sure, to absolutely, this guy's a serial entrepreneur, he's an innovator, he's won awards, he's a best-selling author, and he's an acclaimed keynote speaker. And when the AI says it, it's a third independent party in people's minds. And the fact that I've made that happen is neither here nor there.
Mm-hmm.
So it closes a lot of bottom of the funnel deals. Higher up the funnel, if somebody says, who are the world's experts in generative engine optimization? It will say Jason Barnard, and it will say he's also a serial entrepreneur and an award-winning innovator. So within those consideration phases, I'm top of the list, second in the list, third in the list. If I look more impressive than the person who's top of the list, it doesn't matter that I'm second or third because I've got the award-winning innovator in there. So the words you use and you can convince the AI to use are fundamentally important. And that's the framing. The framing is so vitally important, people skip that step.
Yeah. How would the plumber in Colorado, like what, if because I get it with you and what you're doing, but apply this to the plumber in Colorado. How would you do that process?
I mean, the framing is all going to be about how you can make, or how he or she can make their career and their work appreciated. So thousands of happy customers, you're going to be saying things like that. You need to find these key phrases that you turn around. We call them facets. So, I'm trying to think of one for a plumber, but the most respected plumber in Austin, Texas.
The most reliable,
Thank you. Much better.
The highest rated,
so you're going to frame
value.
it. And if you can get the reviews from your clients that reiterate that, then the machines are going to believe it. And they're going to repeat it. And they repeat what you say if you can back it up. So as a plumber, I'll do 25 years in the industry. I'll have even if it's, I don't know what it's called in America, a BTC, it's called in France, in plumbing, a low-level qualification. Plumber. It's still a qualification.
Mm-hmm.
And a qualification means something from a specific school. If Google AI recognizes the school and it knows that it's a school that specializes in plumbing and you have a certification from it, however lowly that certification may seem, make the most of it, frame it. I mean, I thought Davy Awards were rubbish, but they're not. They're brilliant. And apparently they're really valuable. And I was lucky to have won one, or I was smart to have won one. I just didn't realize the value. And once I framed it literally 6 months ago, I've gone from not an innovator at all to award-winning innovator in 6 months in every single AI engine. If you search my name, it will come up with that phrase that I put in its mouth.
All right, there's one foil in your plan. I like foils. Like I like problems because it gives my brain something to solve. Old media still controls a lot of the fame piece.
Yes.
And I know you and I are working through some old media stuff. How does a business owner that's a plumber get notoriety in a way that, without hiring and paying a PR company $10,000 a month? How does that plumber, work through the old media stuff? Because we could do all this work and then there could be another plumber who got featured on the news in the local newspaper because his cousin works for this, the senator or whatever it is.
Very frustrating.
And all of a sudden we did all this work and this plumber who has none of our certifications, none of our reviews, none of the entity things, rates above me because the local newspaper there called him the number one plumber in all of Colorado. So how do we handle the old school media that still has a stranglehold on the AI gods and search?
Well, it's a really interesting question because there are several things going on. Number one is the old school media are trying to shut out the chatbots. They're trying to stop them stealing their content. So in fact, it's a problem that may well go away because they're protecting their intellectual property, the writing they've done, and they don't want to share it. So it actually doesn't get into the AI models. Into the search results, probably, but that might not last because the distinction between the data these big tech companies use for knowledge graphs, for LLM chatbots, and for search engines is unclear. So that's one chunk. I'm not saying the problem's going away. I'm saying it's an interesting perspective. Number two is the riches are in the niches. I was talking to somebody on my podcast yesterday, Joel, and we're probably going to work with him because he was saying, I am the king of debt-free real estate investment for industrial real estate in Chicago. You're going, okay, that's very niche. We don't need major press for that. We can make you the leader in that very, very specific niche and then build out from there. So in your plumber situation, I would say, what's your niche? Find yourself a niche and identify it and work out from there. You're going to be beaten by the big press for the bigger terms like plumber in Austin, Texas. But reliable plumber who fixes faucets in 2 hours in Austin, Texas, maybe there's a lot of work in that. I don't know. I'm making it up. I've never been a plumber.
Yeah. So your point is go super deep on your particular niche so that you can own that. And then once you land your beachhead there, then expand.
Well, I like that analogy. Yes, exactly.
I know, because you're a Frenchie. You're a Frenchie, and so I thought I'd land the beachhead. Yeah,
very smart. And that niche is probably much more juicy than you think it is, because we come back to the trillions of conversations with billions of people, and they're bringing that person down the funnel, and you need to be top of algorithmic mind, I call it, at the critical moment when the problem is defined and the person is saying, well, when push comes to shove, who do I choose? That moment of decision. If you're the niche, if you're the person in that tiny niche, you will always get the click. If the AI understands that you are the number one credible solution within that niche.
I guess the only caveat for our audience to understand is, if you're a plumber and you're like, I fix under sinks who have this thing broken, and there's only 100 of those searches that happen a month, that's not a business to own. Like, that's not a niche to own. You need to make sure that there's enough volume and the dollar per ticket is high enough, and you can live on that kind of revenue, because you're not going to get 100%. You're probably not even going to get 30%. So you just have to make sure. How would you make sure that?
No, I mean, it's a great point. I mean, number one is you need to look at your previous business and what's been making money. What's the highest ticket margin you get? Well, the highest margin, where have you been making the majority of your money? And I think a lot of us as business owners don't do that often enough. Look at your clients, look at the margin, look where the money's coming from. And from what I understand from all the business courses I've been doing and the coaching I've been going through, is 80% of your business comes from 20% of your clients, or something like that. It's the 80-20 rule. And if you look at that and say, okay, I need to focus on that, and that's where I'm going to make my money. So from Kalicube's perspective, 2 years ago, we were still doing, as you said, SEO. We've stopped. And so we're focusing in on the people we can truly help, entrepreneurs who are ambitious, who are investing in their personal brand, who want to amplify that brand and control the narrative through search and AI. And that's where we bring value, but also where we have the largest margin. So niche down, but make sure that there's the margin. And as you said, that there's a livable wage in there.
What's interesting is I was at a conference, and one of the speakers there had built a personal brand, and mostly through podcasts and social media. And he had used his personal brand to get a free condo in the place that he was living, because there was a developer who couldn't sell condos, but he had a personal brand that could drive purchases of condos. And so he got a free $300,000 condo in this gorgeous, resort location on the beach, because he could drive traffic with his personal brand. For him, the exchange was very clear. But my question for you is, what is a personal brand going to be worth in 3 to 5 years? Assuming, the AI gods are trusted, they run everything, and our world is a lot different.
Well, my bet is it will be worth significantly more than it is today, because as AI takes over in the world that you've described and the Wall-E world we talked about earlier on, human contact and a real human being who actually has done something and has experience and you can trust is going to have increasing value. Because it will be so easy to automate things. The human contact and the human element of a relationship and my respect for this person who's behind this particular platform, that will do everything for me, but the person behind it is going to become increasingly important. As we move into a world where AI takes over, the human element becomes more important. I'll give you a really nice example. I live in the south of France. I'm a musician as well as an entrepreneur. I play the double bass and I'm a singer. Over the last year, there have been more and more concerts organized because people are tired of sitting behind their computer. They want to get out there and have a real experience with real people playing real music. That's a kind of separate example, but it shows to what extent people need something. I hate to say the word authentic, but live music is totally different to listening to Spotify. Live music surrounded by your friends and lots of people having a good time listening to that music is a million miles away from Spotify.
There's an energy that can't be reproduced. There's this like something in the air with live music.
Yeah, especially if you're Phil Collins, there's something in the air.
Oh yeah, that guy.
And one thing is, you said 5, and I've got the 5th one. And
good.
Interestingly, the 5th one is often the thing that people do first. Getting out there, guest podcasting, writing articles. And you need to do that, and you need to do it within your niche, and you need to make sure that you're becoming the person in your niche. But if you haven't got a central hub, if you don't have your digital footprint already sorted out and represented on that digital hub, if you don't have your claim frame and prove in place, you don't really have any as much additional value from it. So, for example, I'm on this podcast, and you'll have noticed I mentioned multiple times, I'm a world expert in online reputation management. I'm a world expert in generative engine optimization. I'm dropping my framing into this conversation. And if you know that before you do the podcast, you can make the most of the podcast by dropping the claim frame prove system into it. But you won't get to the claim frame prove until at least the 6 months of working on it, probably more. Yeah. So the first thing people do is go on podcasts, write articles, but it's actually the last thing you should do. Sort yourself out, figure out what you're trying to say, then get out there, because that's where the power will come, because then you don't have to go back and contact all the podcast hosts and ask them to change the summary. And remember, you can't change what you say on the podcast. You can't edit your Forbes article once you've written it. So make sure the claim frame proof is in place before you do that.
That's really interesting. Well, Jason, you'd mentioned some free content, and I want the audience to have the opportunity to find you and take advantage of either the content or, becoming a customer to understand how to build this out.
Yeah.
Because even though I'm a customer, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's so much in this conversation that I didn't understand 2 years ago when we first started working together. So where would somebody find you? And then what's the free content that you want to give away?
Well, I'll start with the free content because it's here behind me, kalicube.com/guides. We've got 7 or 8 free guides and a book, which is free. And they all explain the details of how we do things at Kalicube. So I'm giving it away because it's a universal truth. The Kalicube process, which is the process we implement, is a universal truth that works for all AI assistive engines. It's future-proof because it's founded on the 3 technologies that all of these engines are going to be using for the foreseeable future: knowledge graphs, LLM chatbots, and search results. You master them all. Guides are free. Knock yourselves out. Do it yourself. Weekends reading, and you can get started. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of moving parts to hold together, as you can see from this conversation. So our service is, we know all this. We have the expertise. We have the data, 3 billion data points in the Kalicube Pro platform. We have our proprietary tech layer that we've built ourselves that optimizes and packages all of your content for the machine so that it's digested incredibly quickly and incredibly reliably, and that the machines will talk about you positively with great confidence and present you to the right person at the right moment in the funnel, in the conversations they're having. So that's the advantage we offer. Sorry.
No, I'm curious. And this is an interesting conversation, an interesting way to frame the positive results. How many, we have a big team here at MyOutDesk, like 2,500 people. And I've got, as you know, some really good tech people. But I can't tell if you're a marketing person or a technology person or a communication. So how many people understand this process and understand what we're talking about? Like, is there a huge pool of people? Is there a small pool of people? Like, how many people in the world are actually doing this or thinking about this?
To the extent that I do, only one, and that's me. It sounds potentially a little bit pretentious, but it's not, because I've mastered the algorithmic Trinity. I had a conversation with Anne Smarty, who's very, very famous in the marketing world, who said, we all understand the algorithmic Trinity, but I invented the term. So she's using a term that I invented to say that everybody understands it, and saying, well, you didn't understand it until I explained it, which is brilliant. But do you understand how to actually master all three of them? Because it's very similar, but slightly different for each one. And SEO is way behind in the past. The people who understand this are the people who've understood those three technologies, and you can't have one without the other. And every other company and person I know is focusing on one, two of them, sometimes two. Michael King is a great example. Yeah, Michael King, great example. iPull Rank, super smart guy. He's absolutely super amazing at SEO. He's got the LLMs reasonably well sorted out, but he has no real understanding of how the knowledge graph works. So he's missing one of the three. No offense to him. I mean, he's super smart. I think he's brought a great deal to the community. But within Kalicube, I've got Elisa, and you know Elisa. She's the first person I've ever met who really understands what I'm talking about and can say, right, I've got what you've said. I've got the database. I've got the platform. And she comes back to me with stuff that I hadn't even thought of. And she's the only person in the entire world I've ever met who does that.
So it's rare.
Deanie's getting good too.
Who?
Deanie, who is Elisa's number 2. You know Deanie. And she's starting to really, really get this down. And I'm super excited about the future with Deanie and Elisa.
There you go. All right, Jason, I really appreciate your time today. It's been fun conversation. I've learned things about being a customer in this conversation that I don't think I knew before, but I just want to thank you for your time today.
Oh, thank you for the interview. I loved the questions, and I love that we got 5 things in, and it went much deeper than I thought it would. And I hope it helps people.
It will.